Hi, Deepti. Hi, how are you? I hope you're well. Sorry this has been delayed because I've really been trying to. I've had quite a few of them to do, and so I'm just making a video for you to sort of explain what it is that is sort of new, but not really new. So this was the first spreadsheet you and I worked on together, and that we sent and we stored as your first workbook. Now, what I've done is to transfer a lot of this information onto the real workbook. So let me show you what the actual. So this is the first thing you will remember this, of course. You have to fill in the skills, behaviors. That's the behavior one. That's the skills one. You have this. I'll email it you again, and you had to sort of answer these questions and have evidence for them, right? And you still hopefully have that evidence. I have the evidence anyway. Now, this is what we actually submit to AAT. I just wanted to what I I but I think now you'll be quite comfortable when you see the spreadsheet that AAT require of you. So so let's just look at that. Let's just look at that spreadsheet. So here we are. Here are the skills and behaviors. I said there was just a bit more. We had this idea of knowledge, and that's the kind of a few questions on knowledge. But all the questions and all the answers to this area come from skills and behaviors, right? So let's go to that, and here we are. So you can skip this early bit. This is where we start. So this is the knowledge bit. So the question says, describe the main transactional processes and reasons why these need to be undertaken in the role. This is really asking what is it that you do, if you like. What did you do? And remember that the data we collected, the evidence we collected when you started, when I came to see you, was very much on this something about an expense day book. And I've literally lifted this information from the spreadsheet, right, that we have here. So this has really come um, from the analysis, this document here. Same thing. Literally, you have the information. So we're not rewriting anything new per se. We're just expanding and mapping it to the questions in the actual spreadsheet that AT have sent us. So just so you can read that, and I put that there. And then I'm just going to go to the second question. And this sort of says, describe and understand the business strategy that meets the needs of the stakeholders. It's almost asking why you're doing it. What's the purpose of this? And really, the whole idea, of course, here must be to make sure that the information, if you like, gets into the management accounts and then gets analyzed. And so read through what I've done here. I've sort of answered, so I just need you to sort of turn this more into your own words, but I've sort of transferred as much as I can, if you like, to the spreadsheet. So you're just kind of working on it and making it a bit yours. So 1.3 asks you I ask you to reference 1.2. This question says, talk about the relevant and compliant information demonstrating the understanding of the financial business awareness. This is really asking about how do you know to do what you're doing. So it's really, what's the guide? But really, it doesn't really matter. The fact that you've shadowed someone, you can just write about the fact that you shadowed someone and you were able to prepare this expense daybook, or was there a document you followed? What was it that guided you to do 1.2? So reference 1.2 when you're talking about this. And again, the same thing. This is really, what is the end goal of what you were doing? That's what those 4 questions are ultimately asking about. This is asking you to talk about the systems where you work, that you use at work. So I remember we talked about this idea of Aggresso. Talk about Aggresso, talk about any other accounting systems, Excel, whatever, and how they're relevant to what you do, and just talk about how you use them. And if you talk about 2.1, definitely, if you write well about 2.1, you'll be covering 2.2. So that's kind of the issue. So if you can do 2.1 properly, because this one now says describe how these systems support financial information, then if you like, you can reference 2.1 by talking about 2.2. So once you talk about 2.2, you can just say reference 2.1. I've already talked about this, right? So it's almost about making sure you write extensively, because they're all really asking the same thing. Demonstrate an understanding of data protection within the organization. So really, what I want you to do is reference your GDPR certification and talk about passwords and everything you're using, how data is stored. That's what they're really asking for here. So you already have that, really. So just talk about that and have the evidence sort of tagged. So 3.1, we need a VAT return. I can talk to Caroline about that, but really, I can use your notes from your exams. It doesn't matter. But if you have, we'll talk about that. If you have one, if you've done one, that's brilliant. And so that's really what's happening there. And that's the end of knowledge. And then it's bang on to everything we've talked about that you've been doing so far in 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 this first spreadsheet. Just maybe the questions might just look a little different, but just kind of look through. And I've taken everything from your spreadsheet. I've done as much as I can to try and take that information and put in here and reword it a little. So, for example, you can see it's sort of the same thing. I really want you to talk about, this is the very first time I met you. So this information is for that time. We'll talk about you having how you would develop a new spreadsheet. But the key point is this is for the very first time I met you. So yes, you may not, remember they're trying to see growth. You may not have had all the evidence to be able to make all the big decisions, but at least we got the information for expenses, and we could, if you like, end up transferring that information. It would end up in some management accounts, and someone could do some variance analysis on that work, even though it wasn't you. So this one, for example, is talking about the robustness of internal controls. It's really saying what controls are there in place to make sure that the work gets done properly. So generally, someone looking at your work, maybe some levels of authorization, a password, storing of data. They just want you to talk about that. And here they want you to talk about how you actually, you probably look at the information just before you press send, just make sure that there are no differences and it's sort of in line and there's nothing abnormal with the data before you send it. And that's what they're really asking for here. But remember, in this very first spreadsheet, we're really focusing, if you like, on that first meeting I had with you. And so really, what I need you to do is look through and go down the spreadsheet and look at the questions and just fill out this one. When I say fill out, you're just kind of tying up or just turning them into your own words. Speak in the first person, if you like, and have the, if you like, the evidence numbers retagged. So when I say retagged, you could probably start by here and just call this the very first one, whatever the evidence is. It's almost like renaming the evidence, if you like. So maybe evidence piece 1 or R1, and then when you get here, you can call this R2. Whatever pieces of evidence, you just line it up as you go along. Right. And I think that's what I want you to do. So now, when you finish this, just to sort of show you where I'm going, because you've only done one workbook really for me, I've delayed you, apologies. Olga kind of has sort of started a second workbook. So what Olga has done is, you can see here, this is how yours would look, the first workbook and your sort of spreadsheets. You don't need to keep a spreadsheet anymore now, but because Olga, so that's level 1. And then remember that the whole idea was that you would do another spreadsheet, exactly the same thing. So you create a new, entirely fresh PDF, fresh one, and populate it with the new workbook. When I say the new workbook, the new evidence to show growth. So you're answering those questions again, but this time you're not talking about the expense daybook. You're talking about the next pieces of evidence as you go along. So ultimately, we want to try and get 3 of these kind of PDFs, right? So think of this as the first PDF when I met you, and then you create another PDF, totally blank, fill it out with the new information, and probably a third one before we finally meet at endpoint assessment in June or May, June, that sort of thing. And then what we'll end up doing is transferring all of that into one master workbook. But what we need to first do is let's experiment with this first workbook, get it right, make sure we're happy with it, fill out as much as you can, because it's only the first lines you're filling in, just evidence 1, evidence 1, evidence 1. And then get back to me and let's see how we build that. So it means that when we prepare the next workbook, we're in line. This will make it so much easier when we come towards the end. Usually we tend to use the spreadsheets and wait, but no, this is better. If we start now and start populating this, by the time we get to the end, we're ready to submit everything at once. Okay, great stuff. I'll send this to you. I hope it helps. Speak to Olga. I made a video for her as well. And then in my email, hopefully there'll be some more information to guide you. All right, thank you.